Hey guys, we're almost there. So this week's DBQ is focused on period three. Period three is what we did at the very beginning of the school year. It's something you should obviously be very, very familiar with. It's all the stuff on independence. You've done this over and over and over again. You should be pretty comfortable with this period. So we're going to take a look at a DBQ question from the 2017 exam that focuses on period three. The question is, evaluate the extent of change in ideas about American independence from 1763 to 1783. Now, first thing that's important to note when you make your thesis statement is that this is a 20-year span. 1763 should ring a lot of bells for you. Bing, 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 bing. What is 1763? Why is that year important? Well, it's the year that ends the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, depending on who you ask. And it's the year that they draw the proclamation line. 1783, end of revolution, all that good stuff. So it's a period of very dramatic change, and it's only 20 years, which is pretty significant, and you can point that out. So 1763, no one is thinking about American independence. 1783, we are completely and entirely independent. We have won our independence through war. So let's take a look at these documents, shall we? Remember, you're making a complex thesis. However, because if you need it, if not, make sure you're pointing out that there are exceptions to the rule. Okay? So let's take a look at the documents, and then we'll start thinking about exceptions to the rule. Here's document 1, which is a lovely teapot. Beautiful. No Stamp Act, America, liberty restored. It is made in England. It is definitely dealing with getting rid of the Stamp Act, so that should give you a clue about time period and what was going on for context. Let's continue. Okay, document 2 is from the Virginia House of Burgesses, the Virginia Resolves, 1769. Again, that date is important. We've progressed since the proclamation line. We've gotten a little upset with England, maybe. And it talks about the right of imposing taxes on Virginia and how it's vested in the House of Burgesses. So we're talking about taxation, we're talking about representation. That is an early showing of that concept. So that's something to point out, maybe. Document 3, Sam Adams. That name should be familiar to you, I would hope. And then it's talking about the rights of colonists in 1772. The significance is he's talking about rights of colonists, and you know that Sam Adams is fairly radical, much more so than his brother. And we're approaching the date of the Declaration of Independence in 1772. So we've progressed a little bit in our ideas about independence. Let's continue. Document 4, Quaker leaders addressed the Pennsylvania Colonial Assembly, 1775. Super close to independence. We've really started to throw down at this point. And we know that Quakers, or hopefully you remember that Quakers are very anti-war, kind of hippy-dippy. Important to note while you're reading this document. Document 5, Janet Shaw, Journal of the Lady of Equality. And you can see that she's visiting her brother in Wilmington, North Carolina. So let's make sure you're taking a look too at the date, 1775. Again, kind of at a critical point. Okay, document 6, Charles Inglis, Anglican church minister in New York City, Costs of Revolution, 1776. So you'll note, 1, he's an Anglican minister, which is the Church of England. He's talking about the costs of revolution. So maybe it's not so great to have a revolution. And it's 1776. We are well into this. You'll also note it's in New York City. New York City was notoriously loyalist, not nearly as independent as, say, Philadelphia or Boston. So important to note when you look at these documents. Last but not least, document 7, Thomas Paine, important one, good old T-Paine. The American Crisis. and that's 1776 again at the very end. Very famous excerpt from this work. Again, remembering Thomas Paine, very loud voice for independence, and we're kind of at the, we've already declared independence. We're fighting for independence, and we're at the end of 1776. So that's worthy of noting for context as well. So remember, we have kind of a great progression here, and they did you a favor by going from early to late. And remember, as I said in the very beginning, you want to evaluate the extent of change in the ideas about American independence. So the very beginning, you're going to have not as much about independence, maybe just anger towards Britain, but not wanting to become actually independent of Britain, to all the way at the end with Thomas Paine telling us that we need to get out, break this relationship off. Now, again, worthy of noting, because you need a complex thesis and not just, yes, it was a clear line, everybody started at one point and ended at the same point. We know from living in the United States that that just doesn't happen, that there are varying opinions, and there always will be. So as you look through, you want to point out the people that are, even in the throes of fighting, maybe not so hot on the idea of revolution. This Anglican minister in New York City. Not everybody was a patriot. There were many, many, many loyalists that lived in the United States and continued to live in the United States after independence. So those are worthy of noting. Remember, you're making a complex thesis for this discussion, and then you're going to make a DBQ map like we have done in class over and over again. Map out your paragraphs. Map out where you want to put these documents. Do you want to do it political, economic, social? Do you want to do it by maybe the most independent to the least independent? That's up to you. There's no right or wrong here. Just make sure your thoughts are organized, they're well thought out and planned, and you will do just fine. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week.